I've grown violently intolerant to anything that isn't real, to performance, to inauthenticity, to fakeness, to anything that's not aligned with who I really am and what my truth is.
And that comes from someone who spent their entire life people pleasing and performing for approval and validation.
Now, before I tell you how I've grown intolerant to being inauthentic and performative, let me take you a little bit back and share with you who I was my whole life. Now, I was the person who couldn't say no. I was the person who was an extreme people pleaser, who was terrified of being disliked, being rejected, being judged. So I tried to be whoever people wanted me to be. I spent my entire life performing for validation and approval. And I was like one of those social chameleons. I could adapt to any situation, shapeshift myself into anything people wanted me to be. And at some point, people even told me that. They were like, whoa, you can really be a chameleon. I was really good at reading the environment, reading people, making sure that I know exactly what type of person they would like so I can become that. And I would call that a camouflage, right? That's what chameleons do. Let me tell you how National Geographic defines camouflage. It's a defense mechanism or tactic that organisms use to disguise their appearance, usually to blend in with their surroundings. Oh boy, did I blend with my surroundings. And the funniest thing was, everyone actually assumed I am extremely confident, I'm really bold, I'm really extroverted, which I am. I mean, I'm a talkative social person, I'm extroverted as well. But the confidence that everyone thought that I had was not confidence. It was actually fighting for survival. It was me trying so hard to perform so I can be liked that I didn't even have a second to think who I was. And later in life, I discovered that I actually had no confidence. I was simply terrified. Most of my life, I was just anxious, constantly anxious of what people think of me. And not in the normal way that everyone feels, a little anxious and a little afraid of people's judgment. I was so anxious that I couldn't think about anything else than myself and how I look and how I sound and how I operate and what someone thought of my action. And you can also imagine that my relationships were extremely toxic because you can't possibly have healthy relationships when you are so anxious about what everyone thinks about you. With all of that being said, there was another part of me that was craving freedom. And I didn't know what that freedom looked like exactly. I didn't know the freedom that I was craving. I thought that it was wealth. I thought that it was financial security and financial freedom. And I thought it was traveling. And I thought it was adventure. And I thought that it was about me not fitting into the box of the 9-to-5 corporative world, which I did not. I was always kind of rebellious and I was trying to do everything that felt like going against the the norm, right? So I never had a corporate job. I never had a normal job. I've been entrepreneuring my whole life. And I was traveling all around the world by myself and seeking adventure and seeking all of that and trying to become wealthy. I thought that that's what I wanted because the whole internet was telling me that that's what I wanted. That's what's gonna get me my dream life. Now, I followed all of those urges, all of those things trying to find my freedom. And what I realized only of recent was that the freedom I was craving was actually the freedom to be unapologetically myself. And I know that people use that a lot as a buzzword.
Be unapologetically yourself.
But for me, for someone who has abandoned herself for so many years and betrayed myself in the name of approval and validation and being liked, that freedom of being me meant everything. And not just be me in the rebellious sense of the word, like I'm gonna do whatever I want. It's like no, it's that grounded confidence and courage. I define it as courage to just be bold enough to be you, just to be you unapologetically, and to do what you feel is aligned. Now, let me tell you, for most of my life, I didn't know who I was and I didn't know what I wanted because I let everyone tell me what I should want and who I should be. And so when it came to the point in the recent year and couple of months in which my whole life got completely destroyed. And I've had moments like that previously, collapses here and there for a couple of months, breakups, changes of environment, things like that, that shaped me little by little and forged me little by little in the person that I had to be. But this particular collapse was fundamental. It was fundamental. It was so heavy and so violent that I could no longer live in any way that isn't my truth. I faced sides of myself that I never faced before, dark sides of myself. I did things that I had no idea I was capable of doing. That's a story for another time. I found myself in a situation back in my parents' house with no money, with no business, with no way of going back to Spain where I lived, where I had a place and all of my belongings were there. I didn't have the chance to pay for my flight ticket back and to collect my belongings. So I was almost violated when my landlord had to pick up all of my stuff for me and ship them back to me. And I didn't even have a chance to close that chapter for me. Usually, how I always have operated in the past is I always knew how to make money fast, how to find opportunities, how to, get myself out of situations that I don't want to be in. But this time, here I am. After everything that I thought about myself, my identity collapsed, my relationships with people that I cared about completely destroyed. I betrayed the trust of people that I care about and my own trust. I betrayed myself. I found myself penniless, like no money whatsoever, back in my parents' house, unable to make anything work. Now, I always know that frequency, energy, trust is much more important than hard work. But this time I was like, I don't care. I'm just going to do everything humanly possible to get myself out of this situation. I'm going to hustle my ass off. And I did. I was determined to make a couple of sales to get myself out of the situation and to find my next location so I can maintain the image that I had of myself, the image of the person who either always makes things work or the person who always finds opportunities or the person who is always traveling. And bear in mind, being back in my parents' house with nothing, I was stripped naked of every mask that I had and unable to pay for anything was an instant ego death. Of course, I resisted it a lot. Like I refused to admit that that was my situation. So I kept hustling. But no matter how hard I tried to make some money, to get some sale, to do something, to make something work, nothing was working. This was my ultimate failure and the ultimate ego death because now I didn't even have anything to cling on to in terms of masks and performance, and my self-worth, I realized, was attached to all of those things, be it having a business or traveling or always being like quick on my feet to find solutions. Nothing was working. And I realized that God wanted that to happen. I realized it in retrospect because if none of that had happened, I wouldn't have been stripped down to the essence of who I was and to discover my authentic self, because everything I did up until that moment in my life was performative. Maybe I will tell you that story in another time. I'll expand on it maybe in another video. But that whole situation led me to discover that I can't operate from my performative self anymore. Like I tried. I just developed this allergic reaction almost to anything that isn't true, that isn't aligned. And I remember Martha Beck. I don't know if you know about her. She is an amazing author, she wrote the book The Way of Integrity. She had a similar story, and she was my age too. She was 28. Now I'm 28. Her story is a lot heavier than mine. She lived her life performing as well and living a life that was not aligned with who she truly was. At some point, she was actually physically sick. She couldn't move. And so she wanted that freedom. She was craving that freedom, the same freedom that I was craving. And she read the verse from the Bible that said, "The truth shall set you free." And she decided that that was her way out of misery and to freedom, to do nothing that's not her full truth. And so she took it to the extreme, and she did a little radical experiment in which for 1 year, she didn't tell a single lie to anyone. And a lot of stuff happened for her. I highly recommend you listen to her story. But I so resonate with that because I physically feel repulsed to perform anymore. Like I can't do it. And I tried, let me tell you. One of the goals that I have for 2026 is to grow my personal brand on Instagram and to grow my podcast. And so I started following what people were telling me on Instagram I should do so I can grow my personal brand. So you have like the hooks, the story arc, the editing style, all of those things that everyone was telling me is the way to go. So like me, the performative old self, starts just following what people tell me I should do. And I started creating those series that people told me I should create. And then I started editing my videos in the way that people were showing me I should edit them. And it felt so performative. God, I couldn't do it. I made 3 videos and I just couldn't do it. Like I looked at me and I felt like this was me from a couple of years ago, but it's not the me right now. And the thing is, I'm not quite sure what my style of editing is. I don't know what my style of recording content is yet, but I just know that that's not it. So I'm following the path of joy, the path of alignment, the path of truth. So I don't know exactly where that would lead me, but I know it's going to lead me to fulfillment because I can't just do things because someone told me I should be doing them because that's what works. Like, no, I believe that strategy is secondary and complementary to alignment and intention. So if you're not fully aligned with what you're doing, it doesn't matter if you follow the best strategy in the world. Like, it's not going to work, in my opinion. Even the business that I previously had was built on so much performance that I couldn't restore it. Like I tried, but I couldn't restore it. I absolutely love inspiring people. I love motivation. I love coaching. I love all of that. But it has to be now built from a different place. And that's my intention. And the same thing goes for dating, or fake friends. Like previously, I would just go out with people that I just felt are not my people. Like it was performative. It was fake. Now I can't tolerate that. Like if you're not my genuine friend, if you don't have the same genuine ambitions and goals like me, I don't have the mental bandwidth, the mental space for you. And dating as well. I have went on a couple of dates, and the moment I just don't feel alignment, or a man approaches me and wants to maybe kiss me or hold my hand or something, if I don't feel it, I can't do it. I just don't do it. But previously, my people pleaser self would not be able to say no. I would just say yes, even when I want to say no. And I know that that's a problem for so many women. I've lived that. Like for the past 28 years, I've lived a life of people pleasing and performing and saying yes to things that were absolutely full body no. So that's why this mission is so important to me and so close to my heart, because I know what it's like to live a life that's not your own. I know what it's like to perform in your own life and to be a supporting role and almost watching your life happen, and you don't feel like you're the protagonist of your life. And so I know what that feels like. I know the pain of unfulfilled potential and of unexpressed creativity. And as Brené Brown says, unexpressed creativity is not benign. It metastasizes. It metastasizes in sickness, in unhappiness, in depression, in toxic relationships. So my mission is to help us be bolder in pursuing what feels aligned, in being who we truly are and expressing our creativity fully and unapologetically. So here's the key highlight from this episode. Alignment will never come disguised as misalignment. Sometimes we wonder, oh, is that the thing? Is that my thing? Is that the right path? The moment you hesitate, the moment you feel resistant, the moment you feel contraction, it's not your path. Alignment comes as full body yes. It comes as a click. It comes as a knowing. And alignment never comes disguised as misalignment that you have to figure out. If it doesn't feel expansive, true, it's not your thing. Someone might tell you that that's the way things work. Someone might tell you that this is the right path, this is the right strategy, this is the right business. It might be for them, but you have to trust your own truth, your own intuition. It always tells you what's right for you. Thank you so much for watching. If this was helpful, I would love your support. So please comment down below. Let me know if it resonates with you, and subscribe to my channel. It would mean the world. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.